Well, welcome to the Difficult Student Podcast. My name is Mr. Vergara, the Educator, and I'm here with Jose. On this podcast, we talk about how building positive, respectful, and supportive relationship with students impacts learning in the classroom. So we got Jose as our guest today. Jose, can you introduce yourself today?
Yeah, my name is Jose Pacheco, and I'm a middle school counselor here in Southern California.
Awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about what you do as a counselor? Like what exactly? I know there's academic counselor and there's a behavior counselor, right? There's like two different types of counselors.
Yeah.
Do you do both, or?
So I do social emotional and academic. I know other middle schools or other districts, they have wellness, they solely have academic counseling, but I'm a little bit of both, social emotional and academic.
Okay. And prior to this, what was your experience prior to this? You were, I know we had talked before. You had worked in the Bay Area, right? And prior to this.
Yeah. So I was in the Bay Area, in the San Jose area for about 5 years, and I just moved back down to Southern California. Originally from Southern California, and I got my start in the Bay Area. First year there, got my experience. I should say 5 years there.
Yeah.
I think I got a good enough experience over there, and um, bringing whatever I learned down here to Southern California.
Now, is there a big difference between the Bay Area and Southern California? Is there a big difference?
I will say it is a big difference. For me, it's where I work currently. It's just different demographic of students I'm working with night and day when it comes to um, the culture of the schools. And so I've worked two different middle schools in San Jose area, and now down here in the South Bay.
So you say like the culture of the students, right? Like what's the big difference? Help us out with that.
So over there, it was predominantly I was working with a lot of brown black students, a lot of mixed students. And over here, it's predominantly um, a homogenous white school.
Uh,
Sprinkles of students who are different shades, colors, backgrounds.
yeah.
And so I've never, currently right now, I never talk so much about baseball and Taylor Swift. So when I have my friends, when they ask me like, "Oh man, like, how's the new school?" and that's what I tell them. I'm like, I never talked about Taylor Swift and baseball so much in my life. Whereas over there in San Jose or in the Bay Area, I was talking about like banda, corridos, nah, um, hip hop, rap, all of that. So it's a different. That's what I mean with the different cultures in regards of demographics.
And we follow each other on social media. I always see some of your posts, and you're always infusing your Hispanic heritage in a lot of things you do, right? Like some of the things you post, you're always talking about that, and how does that affect, your relationship that you build with the students at your school, by you infusing your culture? I've seen some of those posts.
I appreciate that. I think for me personally, growing up, I didn't really see anyone that looked like me. And I know we hear that a lot. Like, I didn't see an educator that looked like us or looked like me. But growing up in the Riverside area, I had maybe a handful of people, educators, that I felt like, oh man, that could be a possibility for me to be in education. And now that I'm in this space and profession, I wanted to bring more representation. And I'm proud of being Chicano. I'm proud of being Latino. And I don't try to like push it on anyone. It's just what I have decorated in my office, what I
Yeah.
wear, my huaraches. And it's cool when kids resonate with that. They're like, "Oh, my
Yeah.
dad has those huaraches," or the music I play in my office. But I think personally for me, I like to represent somehow in any way to of my culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that post that you posted, but somebody said you were wearing moccasins.
Uh, so I have these huaraches, and so that's the difference between the cultures or the different spaces of school, I should say. So I was wearing my huaraches, and I was like, okay, these are cool. I wore these all the time, and I had a student, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Pacheco, nice moccasins." And I literally look. I'm like, "Where? Your moccasins?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, no, those are called huaraches." He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, moccasins."
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's funny. So what inspired you to enter the field of education?
so originally, I didn't want to be an educator. Originally, that was not my plan. I grew up listening to punk rock, and I enjoyed talking to
Yeah.
people, and I love getting to know people's stories. And my goal was to be a radio DJ. Like I wanted to work at a radio station, play punk rock music, and it was until I was at a local junior college. I took a psychology class, and I was intrigued the study of it, the study of the mind, the brain. And I asked my professor at the time. I asked her, like, what can I do with a psychology degree? And she asked me, like, okay, what are you planning to do in the future? And I said, well, I want to do broadcast journalism, but I really like psychology. I'm starting to like psychology. And she said, well, you can do a lot of things. You can do MFT, you can do social work, you can get into school counseling. And when she said that, and I said, oh, wow, school counseling? And she asked, like, yeah, did you have any good school counselors? And I thought immediately two school counselors that I had from high school, Mr. Perez and Mr. Lim. And so I think that conversation with my professor were the seeds um, that kind of watered that interest of
Yeah.
education. Um, so I realized, like, okay, realistically, I think broadcast journalism is not going to happen, and so I started taking all my requirements, and then I transferred to a local school in Riverside.
Awesome. Awesome. Can we get back to those two counselors that influenced your reason to enter the field? What was so special about those two counselors?
So Mr. Perez, he was the first counselor I had that I said, like, okay, there's another Latino counselor here in the area. And it was predominantly I would say a Latino mixed high school, um, but none of the counselors I had in ninth grade didn't look like me or didn't I didn't really resonate with until Mr. Perez was there, and I would bug him for schedule changes. I would uh, ditch classes to like avoid certain classes and to be in his office. And but he stood out to me because he was the first person that I felt in a really long time at that time where he reached out to my parents. He communicated with my parents. He had conferences with my parents. I remember I was on the verge of not passing high school, and he had a conversation with my parents. And from that conversation, I do think that my parents learned how to advocate or how to, I think,
Yeah.
learn more about like the importance of high school.
It sounds like these counselors they were able to build a positive, respectful relationship with you and your family, and because of that, that kept you going, kept you in school. Like you
Mhm.
said, you're about to drop out, but because of the relationship that they built with you and your family, um, that impacted you staying in school, and it played a big role in your life. It sounds like.
Yeah. Oh,
Now,
definitely huge.
as a middle school counselor, right? You're a middle school counselor. How do you use relationship building? Learning from Mr. Perez and the other counselors. How do you use what you learned from them when you're a middle school counselor when it comes to relationship building?
When it comes to relationship building, I think my style is very, I don't even know if fluid is the right word, but I think it depends on the student. It depends on the parent or family. But I'm always intentional. I'm always intentional. I like to outreach before it gets to that intervention. So I'm all about prevention. That could look like a phone call. Or that could look like meeting parents uh, orientation day. That could look like um, me saying good morning out in the office with students. I'm like to be a constant face. I'm in the classroom. I'm in the quad. I'm on morning duty, lunch duty, at times after school duty.
Yeah.
and I want to be a constant face where parents are going to ask like, okay, who is that, and where kids can say, you know what, that's my school counselor. So I want to. That's my style. I want it. I'd like to be a constant face. I like
I like that.
to. I like to be omnipresent, if that's the right word.
It sounds good to me. It sounds good to me. But I like that. You're a constant face is very important, right? It's very important. How many different school counselors are there on your campus? Is it just you, or do you have multiple?
So currently we have three. Two school counselors and then one wellness counselor, and
Okay.
they just started that this school year.
Yeah. And do you guys all take the same approach, being a constant face?
I think so. I
That's
think
good.
so. Especially
Yeah.
me being new, I'm observing a lot of their styles and what works for their school, and so I'm trying to adapt to that, but also mix it up a little bit. Um,
That's good.
what I'm used to and what I was doing in the Bay Area.
So how do you handle students with difficult behavior? Right, you that's being a counselor. I'm sure you got ditching. It's middle school, right?
Yeah,
Ditching, you got ditching going on. I'm sure there's vaping in the bathroom. I'm sure there's all these things, these relationship problems they have with their other whatever, whoever they're having a relationship with. um I You deal with that all the time, I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
So how do you handle those difficult students and those difficult situations?
When it comes to difficult students, for me, it's I always give a student a space to talk. And
Yeah.
sometimes kids don't want to talk when they're in that high state of emotions, frustrations, or they're just pissed off. I'm like, okay, you don't want to talk right now, but you're going to sit here, and I'm here. I'm all ears. Um, but I try to ask questions when they don't want to talk,
Hmm.
and I just give them a space, and I tell them like, hey, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not here to get you more in trouble, but I'm here to listen, and let's figure out what we can do differently next time. Whether it was, oh, I got in a fight, or I yelled at my teacher, or I tried to ditch, or hey, I brought something that I shouldn't have at school. So it's
Yeah.
kind of those restorative conversations. Um, and I try to encourage and remind the students, okay, look at an approach where you may have harmed others, and I know that, and I always remind the students like, okay, you don't go to school to harm others. That's not your goal, and if it
Hmm.
is, then we need to provide more resources for you.
Yeah, that's right.
So I always ask the students like when it comes to um, kids getting bullied, I'm like, okay, you're not a bully. Like that's not your goal, right? You don't come to school to make other kids' lives miserable or other
Yeah.
students. And so I like to provide more self-reflection questions. And sometimes I think most of the time it works, but sometimes I have those kids who are like checked out, like they don't want to talk. And
Yeah.
but I think it's different at times. But when it comes to difficult students, I just provide a space for them to chat, to vent, to cuss. And I tell my kids, I'm like, you can cuss in my office. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
I won't take it personal. And
Yeah, I was the same way when I was a dean. When I worked at a high school, I was a dean. We're fine. We didn't cuss outside into the school, but when you entered my office and I closed that door, well, it's free range now. We're cussing. If you need to cuss, we're gonna go ahead and cuss. It's fine.
yeah,
I'm not gonna blow it out of proportion. It's not a big deal. Vent, let it out. Maybe you need to cuss and you need to let it out, and I'm okay with it. I'm not gonna judge you. I had the same approach like that. Yeah.
and I do want to say that when there's ever defined a behavior, I always think like, okay, what's the remedy for that? Especially with the student I'm not familiar with. I always try to build relationship with the student
That's good.
because I don't want to be punitive. Like that approach can be handled by admin or by the teacher, but for me, like I'm firm in what I do and I hold students accountable. But I always tell the kids like, hey, like I'm here for you. I'm all about your support, but I am gonna call out your BS when you are doing something wrong. Like I'm on your side, but just know that I'm not gonna walk you more into your BS.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull you out. When it comes to difficult students, like the defiant behavior, I think the remedy is always relationship, or to build relationship with the
Mhm.
student.
Yeah. So what do you had mentioned students that are checked out. Like
Hmm.
students that are completely checked out. And then, I remember when I was a dean working at a high school, there were students that checked out. They would never go to class. They would just kind of wander around. They would be checked out.
Hmm.
What do you do with those students? How do you reach those students? Is it possible to actually even reach those type of students?
Yeah, definitely. And I hear this a lot in regards to middle school. Like when kids are checked out in a way that's going to provide their future, or that's going to dictate their high school education. But I think that personally, what I've done in the past is like house visits, home visits, conferences, and sometimes the parent I see at times parents aren't supportive, or parents that just don't know how to support their kid. And it reminds me also parents are still learning how to be parents in
Yeah,
regards of their middle school kids, high school kids. And when I have students that are checked out, it's that's where I know for me I need bigger support where admin needs to come in, other counselors, other resources. And I know some students are not going to resonate or connect with me, but they're going to connect with someone else, a
yeah,
different counselor. So it's like collaborating with other team members to provide, okay, the students checked out. What are your interests? What's a pattern that is it a class that you're not liking? Is school too difficult for you? And sometimes kids don't want to be vulnerable enough to say like, yeah, school, this class is pretty tough, or they don't want to look weak or quote unquote dumb in front of their peers.
hmm, yeah.
So it's a lot of collaboration on my end.
That's good. That's good. And they go through elementary school, and the way I see it is like they go through elementary school, and maybe sometime in second grade or whatever, they're realizing that they're following behind. I feel like
Mhm.
some students fall behind, and if they don't get an IEP, if they don't get the support, you'll go to second grade, third grade, fourth grade. You have no support. You're falling further and further behind,
Yeah.
and now you go to middle school. And now you're in middle school, and there's so many things thrown at you. It's a lot of peer pressure. It's all about having friends and fitting
Hmm.
in and cliques and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
and you're academically behind now because in elementary school you fell so far behind and nobody really caught it. Nobody caught it in
Right.
time.
Right.
And so now you're checked out, and it's hard. It's hard to get those students back on track. It's hard to get those students to want to do well. I've always found it difficult. And my thing was always like, okay, progress equals motivation. So if we could get some sort of little progress, right? If we could get like just a little progress, you just come into class. Just come to class.
Yeah.
Just come. Don't do any work. Just come to
Hmm.
class. Let's
Hmm.
start there. And then after you come to class, okay, well, take out a little bit take a little notes. Do a little bit of work. You don't have to do everything, just do a little bit. And it's that like constant progress, constant reminding them that like, hey, just a little bit of progress, get a little bit better, get a little bit better. And you know what? You will eventually get better. You'll be
Hmm.
better than when you started off, right? You might not be the A student, you might not get straight A's, but you'll be better.
Hmm.
Right? And maybe this will take you into high school, right? Maybe you'll do better in high school. So I don't know. It's middle school's a tricky place. I taught middle school 6 years. 6 years I taught middle school, and then I was a dean at a middle school, high school. So I would say like almost 10 years I was with middle school students, and I love it. I love middle school, but it was very tricky. Very tricky. Do you find it tricky?
At times I do. Like I have colleagues that are in education, and they're like, Jose, I don't know how you do it. Like I could not do middle school.
Yeah,
And, but I always tell like my colleagues or my friends are like, I think this is like my element. This is my space. This is like my jam. Um,
yeah,
it's at times a monster that I can handle. But I think working in middle school reminds me of how I was in middle school. So I think that's why like the last 6 years I've been in middle school. Whereas like okay, like I'm comfortable. I remember middle school being awkward, weird,
yeah.
um, isolating at times, but also exciting. So when I see those um, feelings, emotions, or those stages for my students, it's funny to see. But it's cool to see like, oh, I remember being like that.
You had mentioned restorative conversations, right? And I'm big on restorative conversations. I think that they're very important. I'm big on restorative practices, right? But you always hear that you hear this that restorative practices don't work, right? It's always about like let's give them consequences, let's give them harsh consequences, and then they'll learn.
Yeah.
What is your take on that?
I'm definitely an advocate for restorative justice. And I know some people might feel uneasy about it because, so the context is the last 3 years, I was somewhat trained in restorative justice. It was a brand new middle school I was working at in San Jose. And so they implemented restorative justice. And it was something new to me. Like, I'm like, this is cool. Like, this is
Yeah.
refreshing. We're getting away, or we're stepping away from the punitive consequence um, system or philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And being somewhat trained in that, that's kind of my style now, working at a new school that doesn't or isn't familiar with restorative justice or restorative conversations or circles. And I know people might have a negative view on it, but it's a mindset. I think when it works, everyone needs to have the same mindset when it
Yeah.
comes to providing these restorative conversations in the classroom with their student, with the parent, with their colleagues. It's a mindset, and I think that's how it really works. It takes a lot of work. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
night and day system or philosophy. It takes a lot of work, and I've seen the fruit of it. I've seen, well, trial and error in it. It's still like, for me, being trained somewhat in it, implementing it with a new school that's not familiar with it, with the conversation with my students. It's a little bit trial and error, or with the parent and teacher conversation I try to have. Like, it's messy, and I think with restorative justice, it can be. I don't know if it can be messy. Maybe, unless I'm doing it wrong. But it's. I think it works, but again, it takes a lot of time. And I think everyone needs to have the same mindset when it comes to being restorative. And I know
Yeah.
they might think like, where's the consequence in that? And sometimes it is the conversation. Sometimes it's holding the student accountable, and the consequence, it kind of brainstorms what other ways can we provide a quote unquote consequence for the student instead of
Yeah.
the detention or Saturday school, after school stuff, or cleaning up trash. Like, it's going to look different for each student.
Do you get a lot of pushback from the teachers? Is there pushback on restorative practices at your school?
Right now, no, because I think, because I'm really doing it like with my students,
Okay.
or recently I try to provide a restorative circle with the student and I'm sorry, a parent and teacher, and that didn't work out. But again,
Yeah.
so it didn't work out. But we're not. I think I will say. I think a lot of us at my site aren't um, aware of that. Like, it's a buzzword. I'm sure they've heard,
Yeah.
but it's. Yeah, I don't
It's
think they're.
it's hard with
It's,
adults.
yeah,
It's hard
exactly.
with adults, I would say. When if you sat down a teacher and a parent and yourself and you were um, you know, facilitating the conversation, as an adult, you're thinking like, I'm an adult. I could talk however I want to talk. I don't need to
True.
wait or hold a
Yeah,
talking stick or, I don't need to talk in these I statements. Like I feel as though, I
yeah,
don't need to do any of that. I'm an adult. I'm gonna say what I want to say.
yeah,
I think that that's the issue. Like if that's how you normally communicate, and somebody says, "Here's a talking piece," and you can't talk until you receive the talking piece, that's
yeah,
going to be a problem if you didn't know anything about that.
yeah,
So yeah, but I can see it working. I think it works with students.
yeah.
I think you start in elementary school and you talk about restorative conversations and restorative practice, and you do circles, and you teach them about emotional regulation. You teach them about good positive character, like being respectful, being responsible,
Mhm.
being honest, and you
Yeah.
do that in the classroom. And even better, right? Even better if this is taught at home as well, right?
Oh,
If
for
if
sure.
this is taught at home as well, even better,
Mhm.
right? But I always feel like we don't have control over what happens at home.
True.
Like we don't have control of what happens at home. We have control of when they walk into the door at whatever 8 a.m. until when they leave school at 3 p.m. Right? That's what we have control over.
Mhm.
And I get pushback all the time. Like I always get this pushback where people say, we're not supposed to teach good character. We're not supposed to teach responsibility or being respectful. That's their parents' job. That's somebody else's job to do. That's not the teacher's job. That's not the principal's job. That's not the counselor's job. That's not the, that's the parents' job. And I've always had a problem with that. I mean, I agree that that is the parents' job. I agree they should, but what happens when they don't, right? What happens when these things are not taught to the kids and then they walk into school and now they don't have these skills? Do you not teach them these skills because they're supposed to be taught at home, or do you teach them those skills so they can learn and become better people? What do you think about that?
I think it's necessary. Like yeah, a lot of weight is on the parents, or a lot of pressure is on the parents when it comes to character, when it comes to their students, when it comes to how their students behave. But most of the time, we have their kids. We have their kids. We have their students for a large amount of time. And if we want to provide a positive, safe culture at our school, we need to implement those reminders, those expectations, those skills. And I do see that there is pushback when it comes to, well, that's not my kid, or
Hmm.
that's not my student, or that's, and I can, that can be frustrating, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we got to remember, like, okay, why did we get into education? Is it because we just wanted a paycheck, or is it because we want to help the student? And helping the student, I do think, is reminding them, hey, you're not being respectful right now, or hey, you need to move over here until you're ready to come back in class, or whatever that looks like.
I when I was a classroom teacher, and this might be a selfish reason why I taught being these character traits and all. This might be a selfish reason, but I needed to have a good day, right? My day needs to go well, and you're not going to ruin my day. And if that takes me teaching you how to be respectful, then I'm going to teach you how to be respectful. If you didn't come into my classroom with those skills, right, of being honest, being respectful, being responsible, and you're showing poor character, and that's ruining my day, no, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to teach you, and because you're not going to ruin my day, and you're not going to ruin everybody else in this classroom's day. So I'm going to teach you. So for me as a classroom teacher, and even as an administrator, there's a selfish reason to it. There is a selfish reason to it, and don't ruin my day. And and then there's another side to that where I see myself in these kids, right? I see myself in these little brown, Hispanic, Mexican kids, these brown, black kids who walk into my school, and they came in. Maybe they didn't come in with these skills. Maybe they didn't come in with any of those type of skills. Positive character. They weren't taught how to regulate their emotions. That's me. That was me. And so I'm like, okay, this kid's me. I need to teach this kid how to be successful, right? I'm just not going to ignore the fact that he doesn't know how to be respectful. I'm going to teach her how to be respectful, right? Um, that's another reason why I feel like I teach those type of skills to the students that I work with. As um, I see myself in them.
How do I say this? When a student can resonate with me, then I can immediately think, okay, there's respect there. There's a level of respect, whether it's my culture, being Latino, or my music taste, or it could be the stuff I have in my office, or the band shirts at times I wear at work. So I think when a kid resonates or finds something interesting that I have, or that I have said, I think that could be a starting place of respect. When I have students that are possibly difficult, or students that are checked out, I always try to find something that they can resonate with, and then
Mhm.
I'll be the biggest person, and I'll make it up too. I'm like, "Oh, you like that too? No way!" But then sometimes kids can read like BS, so
Yeah,
so it's better for me to just be real. I'm like, "Oh, you know what? I don't know that, but that's cool. Tell me more about that."
yeah,
Or,
yeah. You've been in education for a while, right? How many years have you been in education? 10 plus years you've
yeah,
been
yeah,
in the
pretty much.
field.
Yeah.
10 plus years, and you always hear about teacher burnout, right? You always see these TikTok videos of them saying, this year I'm quitting. This year I'm quitting. This is too much for
Oh,
me, and I'm quitting right now. but you're still in it, right? You're still 10 plus years. What keeps you going? How are you still in it when others are just quitting? Is a paycheck? Is it? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
It
well,
could be.
it could be.
That's part of it.
That's a benefit. That's a benefit of me being in this profession. It's definitely the paycheck, but it's also importantly the connections I make, the connections I've made throughout my time being an educator, and
Yeah.
I think that is way more than, I don't know how to say it or describe it. Um,
I'm gonna step in right here. I feel like the teacher burnout is a real thing.
yeah.
Teacher burnout is a real thing, and educator burnout is a real thing.
Mhm.
Whatever position you're at, a counselor, an administrator, a teacher, a psychologist, you know, you're a cafeteria manager, a custodian, doesn't matter. This is a real thing that happens, and you know, I, there has to be a solution to this. I feel like okay, what, and then that's why I asked my guests like, what's keeping you in the field? And if I think about myself, right, if I think about myself, what keeps me in the field? Definitely, I get paid. Definitely get paid, right? So let's throw all the obvious ones there. I
Yeah.
get paid. I get my vacation time, right? I get my winter break, my summer break, and all the holidays, right? I get my vacation time. I get health benefits, right? These are the obvious things, right? I don't get paid like a boatload of money, right? But I get paid decently.
Yeah.
Then it comes to uh, I enjoy helping kids.
Hmm.
I truly enjoy helping kids become better people, right? When I was a teacher, it was all about just me helping them be successful. Like yeah, we have these concepts. I'm teaching you math, but I'm really teaching you how to be successful. I need you to be successful, right? I need you to be respectful and responsible. I need you to be a success for you and for your family and for your future children, right? I need you to be successful. I love doing that.
Hmm.
I love that's a big part of the reason why I'm still in this field is to help as many kids be successful. Whatever school I'm at, helping those kids be successful.
Hmm.
I don't know, for you,
Yeah. No. Likewise,
what is it?
definitely,
Can you hear
especially.
the rain? Can you we might hear the rain through this this whole broadcast, but go ahead. No, I'm sorry for
Likewise,
interrupting.
no, definitely likewise. That's what keeps me in where I'm at, and it feeds my why of ultimately I want to help kids. I want to help the kids that remind me of me in middle school, the kids that were struggling academically, the kids that felt isolated, the kids that didn't have friends or didn't find their people yet. And ultimately, yeah, it has benefits like my profession being a school counselor. Summers, I get paid decent. Um, I work at a good school. Those are the benefits. But the why is ultimately I want to help whatever it is in some facet. If it's a situation in regards of a student getting harassed, like I'll step in. I want to help. Or a
Yeah.
parent doesn't know what to do. Their student just got diagnosed with ADHD, but doesn't know the next steps. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm there to support. Or when it comes to a newcomer fresh to this country from
Yeah.
Mexico, I'm
Hmm.
there to support in any way. Um, I want to be there, and I want to provide help, support, communication,
That's
um,
good.
the tools for parents and students to advocate for themselves.
That's good. So how do you? What do you do to insulate you from teacher burnout? Is there anything that you do outside of being a counselor that keeps you from being getting that educator burnout? Like, is something that keeps you going?
Yeah, so I will say the last year was, or maybe the last 2 years, I realized, like, okay, I need to do something outside of work. Like, it's good to have friends, but I started doing jujitsu. So jujitsu
Nice.
is something physical. I do like my night walks. I do my walks. I go to the gym. Well, I try. But
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu has been a game changer. But having a healthy circle of friends
Yeah.
to talk about work or talk about life, and but also working. And I've been very fortunate working at a the last 6 years or the last 5 years, I should say, at a healthy, somewhat healthy working space. yeah, it's
Hmm.
hard. It's difficult. You're not going to get along with everyone, or some
Yeah,
things may not register with you. But I've been very fortunate that it's been somewhat healthy. But personally, for me, outside of work, that's what I can control. Um, that's what I like to do, something physical. That's what I want to spend time with quality people, my friends, with
yeah,
family. I need to get out of my bubble of where I work or where I live. So I like to go out, um, do things alone, invite people into that hangouts, and so
that's cool.
that's what I avoid. Or journaling, like a lot of like self care, mental health um,
Yeah,
outlets, journaling, therapy, um, all of that.
that's
That's what
that's
I
good.
try to do.
Yeah, because you know, as an educator, you could spend your time at school and have a frustrating day, and then you
Mhm.
come home and you could literally crash out. You could just get on that couch, turn the TV, and go take a nap,
Oh,
and
for
and
sure.
then work the next day. Work the next day. You could really just be done after teaching or after being an educator. You could be done and your day is over. But it sounds like you do other things to keep you going. You know,
Yeah.
jujitsu. That's awesome. You know, that's good.
And sometimes it
I'm
is
just
taking a nap. Sometimes it is taking
Yeah.
a nap
Sometimes
afterwards.
it is. Sometimes,
You
every Friday I take a nap. Every Friday when I get home from work, I lay on that couch at like whatever I get home at 4ish.
Uh-huh.
I lay on that couch and for about a good hour nap
Yeah,
time.
dude,
But you're
much
right.
needed.
Sometimes it is take a nap.
It's much
um,
needed.
right. Yeah. So one more question. I got one more question for you. This podcast is also to help, future educators, right? Future educators, entering the field of education. Do you have any tips that you could give? Three tips that you could give to any future educators wanting to enter the field of education?
Three tips. First tip is if you're interested, outreach. Outreach, whether it's a person that you follow on social media or your friend, um, investigate more.
Yeah,
And two, if you have a lot of patience, empathy, if you want to help out, and that helping out looks different, it looks big, it looks, um, it varies, but if you want to help out. And third, dang, I can't think of a third one, but I'm sure
that,
it's
that's fine. I have one other question, and I'm going to add this in there.
okay.
Your social media page, right? Your
Yeah,
social media page on TikTok. You know, I don't know how we followed each other on TikTok, whatever, but this was a while back, right? We followed each other a while back. And you were posting a lot. You were posting a lot a while back, like almost every day. You were
yeah.
posting almost every day, and I enjoyed your posts, and then you went ghost for a good amount of time. What happened with that?
I think life,
Life,
uh,
yeah,
it gets busy, but also I was in transition. I was moving to Southern California and
yeah,
being at a new school, and um, I think the imposter syndrome kicked in.
yeah.
But also it's a different space demographic, and I'm like, dang, what can I provide now as content? Um, but slowly getting back in there, it looks different now. Or it looks a little bit different, but I think I just lost sense of confidence in regards of
Yeah,
not what I could post, but also the confidence of me being a school counselor, me being at a new place, and I think that reflected on my on my social media
your
account,
content, yeah,
TikTok, yeah, on my content.
yeah.
And but I've been very thankful and very fortunate. I've had the college kids, I've had the interns reach out to me,
That's
and
good.
they ask questions like, what, like questions of where did you go to school? Does your school have a PPS?
Yes,
Where did you intern? Do you recommend um, staying local or leaving? And I think that would be my third tip. If you're willing to make it a possibility in regards of being in this profession, whether working locally or moving across country or across the state. If you're willing, then this could be the profession for you.
Right on, right on. And you know what I did, I do remember watching some of your posts about how you talked about your how you became a school counselor.
Hmm.
You gave a whole you gave a couple you did a couple of videos like that where you talked
Yeah,
about how you became a school counselor, and I think that was valuable information, for people that want to become school counselors, right? You provided the way, the how to do it.
yeah.
And sometimes you need to hear that it's possible, right? That you can become a school counselor,
Oh,
that
for
you can
sure.
become a teacher, that you can become an administrator, and here are the steps on how to do it.
Mhm.
And some of the videos that you posted, they were about that. Like, this is how you become a school counselor. This is how I did it. And hopefully, you could use this information and become a school counselor as well. So that was valuable information you gave.
I appreciate that. No, thank you.
Yeah.
And honestly, and if I could be a school counselor, honestly, I think anyone could. I'm not the sharpest. I don't have much experience, but I'm in this field. I've been very. I'm thankful that I've had the experience. I've worked at three different middle schools, and I've got to experience different students, different parents, different cultures of schools. Um, but it's been exciting for this journey,
Yeah.
where I've been, and I do hope that any future educators that are interested, it's a possibility. If I can
Absolutely.
do it, I never thought I would be a school counselor. I thought I was going to be a radio DJ playing punk rock music
Yeah.
somewhere in LA, but now I'm back in the LA somewhat area and trying to change middle school kids' lives.
Change lives. Well, Jose, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I greatly appreciate you being a guest. You provided some valuable nuggets to our listeners. If you're a listener, don't forget to like this, subscribe this. If you're a listener, don't forget to like this, subscribe to this podcast, this YouTube channel, and follow Jose. Follow Jose on TikTok, and I don't know about Instagram, but on TikTok, follow Jose. What is your? Do you want to give your
Yeah,
handle? Do you?
I'll be making it Instagram soon, but it's my TikTok account is the Latino Counselor or Latino Counselor. You'll see my big head with sunglasses, with
I'll
religious
put your
profile.
link in the I'll put your link in the video.
Yeah, you guys can follow me. If you have any questions, please reach out.
Right on. Appreciate that, Jose. Thank you so much.
Thank you.